Hello, everyone. We are back in the Design Lounge. This is the Shelter series, and we're talking about shelter. Who could be better than the national director of one of the most prominent interior design shows in Canada, not just Toronto, and I said it correctly, Toronto. I didn't use the T, as well as Vancouver. Will Sorrell. For those who don't know you, people tell them who you are and what exactly you do.
Hey, Brandon. Well, thanks for having me. My name's Will. I'm the National Director of IDS, as you've mentioned. So I lead both of the shows, which is Toronto in January and Vancouver in September. And we're a small show team. We do everything from creating the show floor, programming the speakers. But we really see the show as the main fair of design in Canada and one of the main communication points between Canadian design and design in the rest of the world.
Absolutely love it. And I've been a guest to both. I've been in the Toronto location. I went into January, and then, of course, I'm in Arizona right now. So I went in January and I saw snow for the first time in years, which it wasn't that bad because coming from the Northwest, I used to see it. Also, the Vancouver show. What I want to know is I want to start out with a story. So I don't know if you know this. Before I was with Gray, I actually was on the board of directors within a local chamber of commerce. I got this crazy idea to do an event, right? And so what I did is I talked to all the different chamber of commerce because I was on the board, leveraged that role, and I created this event, first of its kind, talking about image consulting, styling, the importance of personal branding. I know on an event of that scale, that small, anything and everything can go wrong. So my
Yeah.
question to you is, you started in 2014. I think Most was the first show where you like took the reins of. Now you're the national director of IDS. Why? Why do you deal with those headaches? That is what I want to know. Because you've been doing it now
Yeah.
for over 10 years.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think genuinely you have to be slightly unhinged to work on events. There's this degree of chaos you've got to be comfortable with. Well, you know what? I've always worked in the design industry. I've had loads of different roles, but the main element has been supporting the design industry in whatever way is best. And I think in my most recent career, it's been through events. It's been getting designers in front of their audiences and vice versa, helping architects, interior designers find the right products for their projects. So I came into events completely by accident. I actually wanted to do international politics originally,
Okay. Okay.
um, but my family's background is design, and I guess the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. So I ended up working for this big international development agency called the British Council, an arm's length government thing, but in the design department. And
Okay.
it was working on curated shows. So that kind of set the wheel turning, and that was more touring exhibitions, curated exhibitions. And you're right that role, the Tom Dixon project that I did was a game changer completely. So Tom Dixon is, and I'm sure most people listening will know who he is. He's
Yes.
he's one of the most famous designers in Europe. If you're in the UK, he's a household name. A lot of people on the west coast of Canada and throughout the States have heard a lot about him as well. He's in world domination mode at the moment.
Totally.
He, and he'd been doing these shows in Milan where he would exhibit and show his product line like everyone else does. Then he started doing more creative things and having these pop-up factories around town. And he said, well, why don't I do my own group shows? So he decided to take over the National Museum of Science and Technology, which is this unbelievable building right in the center of town with a full-size naval submarine propped up on stilts in the garden. And he decided to create a 40 brand spectacular. And so he got me to join the team 3 months before this, and I had to piece
Okay.
it all together and design the event infrastructure from the ground up. And it was, and I'd never worked so hard in my life. It was, and to your point, yeah, everything that can goes wrong, and you've just got to say, well, the show's got to open on time. It's just like theatre, opening night comes, everything's got to be finished or but tucked behind the scenes.
Kind of. Yeah. Well,
Exactly.
and that is the beauty of it also, right? Because the thing is, your team knows, everyone's chaotic, everyone's running around like they're tugging things behind. No one knows. Like, unless it's a catastrophic event, everyone else just thinks, oh, it's seamless. And else, it's almost like the gift and the curse. Because then they think it's easy. And you're like, there's no way in heck doing this and pulling this off easy. But to your point, you guys make it look easy.
Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. I always wonder how flustered I look and my sort of fake event smile, whether it holds up. But it's interesting. I get people asking me after the show, so what are you going to do for the next 3 months? And you've already started working on the next one. And it's amazing, it's like concentrated orange juice, there's these 3.5 days people see, but you're working on it for 365. Well, actually more than that. So, you start planning for the event following the next one before that one. So, but I love it though. I really love it. There's something about the crescendo, which I really love, this build up to this point, and then you're the center of the universe for 3.5 days. And then it just drops completely and you sort of start going up the hill. It's like Sisyphus, a character in Greek mythology who was condemned to hell to keep rolling this ball up the hill, and then it would just roll back down again. And that's what we do.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny you put it that way. I liken it to like Christmas, right? It's all these build up for these days, and in your case, even longer, months. And it's like you have this build up, and then what happens? I have children. They open their gifts. They're done in 20 minutes, and you're like,
Yeah.
I've just spent, I've just spent the last 3 months budgeting, buying, wrapping, decorating, and it's like then it's done in a matter of minutes. And again, then it's on to the next thing. You mentioned
Yes.
you kind of got pulled into it. I know your father, he was the co-founder of the London Design Festival. So growing up, you said you thought you were going to do politics. Were you automatically like kind of pulled into design? And did you not want to do design because of that? Or how did that kind of work into now having the role you have right now?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So my mum and dad, before my father did the London Design Festival, they had a graphic design company. It was huge. It was the biggest design company in Europe at the time in the 80s and 90s. And so I kind of grew up in that studio. If I'd finished school early or I was off sick, I'd be in the boardroom watching a VHS and scaring all the junior designers. And uh, yeah, I learned design through them. And yeah, I'll tell you, if you've got parents who are graphic designers trying to do a school project, is the mark wasn't important, but the lines had to be spaced properly. But it was fantastic. It was really good fun. I had a very different childhood. They always said to me, "Don't do it. Don't go into design. It's so hard," because
Really?
they
Okay.
worked. They worked. If you ask them what's the number one thing you need to succeed in design, they always say hard work, because they work day and night and they put their everything into growing their business. So they tried to push me in another direction, and I guess that's what piqued the interest. And
Of
I
course.
don't know. I feel like when you're a teenager, you kind of don't know. You don't really know, right? And
No.
so I was just really interested in the interaction between different countries and how that affects culture. So that's what I studied. But yeah, I kind of had this amazing grounding in design, which you get. You always it's nature and nurture, right? And there was a lot of nurture to do with the design sector.
Absolutely. So I know you mentioned earlier, Tom Dixon, you got the job 3 months prior. Was this the 2012 show or was this 2009? Okay, 2012.
Yeah,
So 3 months, but that was at the beginning of that. And I think
yeah,
you
straight
mentioned
into it.
that you were at the when he took it over, it was automatically you thought of it being a transition. But again, you were at the precipice of the beginning of that process. How do you compare that experience to like now being the national director of IDS, right? Because I could think Toronto has been since 1999. Vancouver Design Show was 2004 when it launched. I mean, these are, well established, known, industry players within that design show space. How was that different?
That is such a good question because they are completely different things, and it was a completely different experience working on them. When you're doing something like that show for Tom Dixon, or even the show Design Junction, which I did later, which we might talk about, which changed venues every year. Um, I think you are struggling so much to stay on top of the basics, that sometimes you miss the opportunity to think at the higher level. It's like Maslow's hierarchy, right? It's,
Mm-hmm.
it's very basic. You're like, can I get the right number of security to stop this like thing being mobbed completely? Or like you're thinking about those basic things. I came into IDS, and it's I've been working on the shows for 2 years, and it's been amazing because it's this legacy. Shauna Levy started IDS in 1999 with her father Stephen, and it was a completely new event concept in Canada at the time. And there's been different directors who've put their mark on it in the interim, and there's so much history. People know it. People have gone as students, and now they're leading their own design businesses. And working on it, is easier in some ways and harder in others. There's nothing the show hasn't tried. So you've always,
Okay.
if you think you've got a new idea, you've always got to check. But I love the fact that it's got that household name quality. Like it's known throughout the industry. We have a lot of good faith built up towards it because of that as well. Um, and the having the basics sorted and it being a well-oiled machine in some respects allows you to develop these interesting new things that you might not have time for otherwise.
Totally, totally. And I definitely want to shift to the actual shelter aspect and again, all the things you do and showcase and the responsibility within that. Before that, obviously, a lot of these listeners have brands, right? They're designers of some capacity across the industry. They're trying to grow their practice. Can you give them some tips about the logistics of activations and creating and establishing a brand through that? Because obviously that's what you guys do on a very large scale, right? But I think there are some similarities and nuggets they can take from you, who runs, again, a huge activation. You have Toronto, you also have Vancouver. What are some things people should look for? And what are the surprises maybe they would overlook when they're like, okay, I want to establish my brand. I want to create more of a bigger brand presence through activations. What should I do?
You mean people doing their own things or taking part in a show?
Creating their own type of activation.
Okay. Um, I would say don't be scared to dive in. I think a lot of people start planning events, a year or two in advance. You can do things quicker,
Okay.
and and it also doesn't matter if things are perfect, like we just talked about. You can people have a lot of tolerance and patience as well. So things you think are going to be a big deal are not going to be. But on the flip side, things you don't realize they end up being a really big deal for visitors. So, but you can't predict that at all. And I would say, if you're planning your own activation, it's always good to get like a very good operational brain, getting someone on board who can take care of those things. Again, talking about the Maslow's hierarchy, those basic things are the base of the foundation. If you can get someone to take those away, then it's going to make your life a lot easier and let you produce something a lot better. And it's really thinking about the promotional plan as well. I mean, it seems obvious, but um, if you build it, they will come only goes so far, especially now. So you've
Hmm.
really just got to think, okay, so if I'm doing that, what am I doing 3 months before that or 2 months before that?
With you running such large programming, obviously you have two different audiences, right? You have the industry as its own separate entity, which is another aspect, but within that same show, you have the public, right? And it's
Yeah.
split. I've been there. Like the first half is industry specific, second half is public. How do you go about creating a conversation that works with both? Right? Because
Yeah.
again, you're talking about the cutting edge of what's design and what's coming, but you're also talking about industry specifics. How do we grow it within the industry? Who comes up with those ideas and what's that timeline look like?
Yeah, well, we're always thinking about ideas, and we've got a sort of bank of things waiting for the right time and opportunity for them to come to life. And it's we've got a core show team of 5 people, and everyone chips in, and all ideas are welcome and good. The split audience thing is really interesting. We're lucky that the subject matter is design, which is a universal subject because, as you know, and is talked about a lot, everything is designed from the cameras that we're looking at to the desks and chairs that we're sitting at to, the wall coverings and the paint, everything, someone has sat down and thought through exactly how it should look and feel and everything. So, we've got this really good starting point. And I think, it's called the Interior Design Show. We actually really go a lot further than that. We talk about architecture and urban planning and product and fashion as well, and really try to cross over with different disciplines. But again, all of those universal, like office design, home design, restaurant design, hotel design, everyone uses those things and has an opinion about it, even if they aren't involved in the business. So I think we're really lucky with the subject matter in that respect. And in terms of our programming, we really try to make everyone happy. And we do differentiate between the days of the show. So in the Toronto show, we've got the Thursday and Friday, which are more for trade. Some public come, so we gear the conversations more towards how to build your design business. What are the latest trends, which might be a little bit more cerebral. And then on the weekend, it's how can I implement this myself? Like how do you work with an interior designer? Is it going to cost me $100 million or whatever it is? Or like, are there a few little ideas that I can use to just tweak my kitchen to make it that much better? So we try and cover it holistically, and we have a lot of people on the show floor who cater to both audiences as well. So it works pretty well, but we always have to keep a close eye on it.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine the hardest aspect is the curation of it, right? Because again, you have design, you could go in so many different directions. It is synthesizing all the potential opportunities and curating down to, okay, this what needs to be shown and talked about. This is what's important in this upcoming year.
Absolutely, and yeah, we're always thinking about that and trying to, like a show like ours, when it gets to the scale it is and the age it is, really needs to be a pulse check of the industry. So we need to look at what's happening, but also look a little bit into the future and say what's coming up next. And you know, people exhibit, they take a booth, they do the show floor, and they do a really good job of designing a nice booth, and we push them in that direction. But they're always showing what the latest products are, and sometimes prototypes of what's coming up. So whether we need to reflect that in our features and also in the talks and the keynotes on the stages as well.
So I want you touched on it, and you guys talk about everything, right? It's not just interior design; it is the interior design show. But you touch
Mhm.
on other aspects of design, whether it be fashion, whether it be architecture. But you also talk about issues within the built environment, right? And shelter as a whole. What do you feel like when you have the notoriety, the brand, the awareness of something like that you guys do? What is the responsibility for you to touch on those points? I know I think this year, Future Home, you guys touched on like urban living, like what are some of the issues, and a lot of the installations talked about potential solutions. So what is your role and how are you guys incorporating that?
Yeah, I mean, IDS, I do feel that responsibility is a really good word. I mean, I do feel that IDS, as Canada's design fair, we're the only event of this size. Canada has a lot of great national membership associations in design, but it doesn't have a design council like in the States or in the UK.
Okay.
And in fact, you know, in the UK, where I'm from, very obvious to people listening to this, there's like a million,
just a little
just a little
giveaway.
bit, a million national design organizations. So I do feel like we've got a role to take the pulse of the industry and reflect back what's going on. And also, I think educating the public about the value of good design. Because I think like there's a difference between I need some more cushions for my sofa and like really thinking about what is like world class and next level and what's going to really change how you live. So I do feel like we've got a responsibility there. And you mentioned the Future Neighborhood, which is the feature that we launched in Toronto in the January show
Just
this
early
year.
this year, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And it's going to be the same feature in our September show in Vancouver, but with a different set of designers as well. And that was a great one. Do you mind if I tell you a little bit about it?
No, we'd love to hear about it.
Oh, great. So, I mean, in Toronto, the brief was to designers. I want you to take one type of interior design or design in general and talk about the future of it and how you can solve problems with it. And it was, you know, quite a loose brief, but and then everyone completely surpassed my expectations with it. So we had projects ranging from syllable design, who looked at the workplace and how you could incorporate biophilic design and sensory to make it a space that thinks about wellness, you know, instead of this is a place where I'm going to capture my workers and keep them there from 9 to 5, which obviously, well, some people are doing, especially in the States, but like I don't
Yeah,
think you can really get away with that anymore. Something to entice people and make it a positive place to come, where, you know, rather than people cracking the whip and all that kind of thing.
totally.
So that was one of them, and then all the way to SVN Architects did a one-to-one prototype of a transitional housing for homeless people in Toronto, which is going to be used. It was called Housing the Unhoused. So it was really, I loved how it worked because that took it to the level of urban planning as well. So all the way from interiors to urban planning and everything in between. And it caught the public's attention. So we got six, and it's not usual, like our usual exhibitors are people who create design products, furniture, lighting, acoustics, bath, kitchen, all of those things. And I think it's really important for us to have at the other end, the interior designers and the architects, part of the conversation, not just coming to it as well or just talking on stage.
Totally.
And they loved doing it. It was a really fun group of people, and it caught the public's attention, and it was on you know, CBC News and in various publications, like really good coverage of it. So it worked. So we're doing it in Vancouver. We haven't announced the list of people doing it yet, but very soon. And by the time this comes out, I expect we will have published it. But then we're on to the next thing in Toronto in January.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think that's important to talk about because people think, design, whether it's fashion, whatever aspect, they just look at it from the aesthetic perspective. But
Yeah.
it's great to bring awareness through that lens to all these other issues that are, not only impacted directly, but also indirectly through design.
Yeah, I think so. I think lots of design can solve a lot of different problems. Like it's, I mean, even think about what's going on in the automotive industry right now. There's complete reinvention of how that works, and design is integral to making those electric vehicles, lighter and less climate impact to produce. And fashion as well. The systems designed by how the behind how the fashion industry works can have a huge impact as well. So I think it's really important thing to discuss. Like we also, it's an interesting one, right? I'm talking about climate change, and we're a trade show,
Hmm.
which is something we've got to be really honest about. Like the nature of having a show where you connect and all come into one place has an impact on the climate. So we are also at the same time as having these conversations, we're pushing ourselves and our exhibitors to create less impact when we do our shows. So for example, everyone used to have aisle carpet. You remember that? So
Yeah,
huge square footage of this carpet, which is then ripped up and sometimes used again and sometimes just put in landfill. And it's pretty gross material as well. And getting rid of vinyl signage. And then also with all our exhibitors, and again, we're lucky because it's design, pushing them to not do single use booths ever and really think about we've had exhibitors who've turned their booths into furniture afterwards and all these amazing solutions to it. So it's an interesting time to do a show and work in the design industry, and there's a lot of overlap between those two things.
I love it. And my next question, I was leaning more towards like, what role you guys play within the industry, but obviously you guys are pushing it forward and holding the design industry accountable. What I want to know is I went to Toronto in 2023, I believe, right? That was my
Yeah,
first IDS Toronto. I was in Vancouver the year before. And it seemed like it was important for the industry for you guys specifically to show up. Right. Not just, as, what's going on in design, but literally show up within the industry. What is you guys feel like is the importance of the backbone of you guys to the industry? The fact that you have this show and you guys are showcasing and honestly, like I said, almost pushing design forward, not only from a design perspective, but also from just a industry perspective.
yeah. I think in design, I mean, human connection is really essential to like the nature of the creatures we are anyway. I think in design, this interaction is so important. This sort of annual coming together, networking, catching up with old friends, meeting new people, getting new ideas is really essential. You can do so much virtually, like this conversation we're having now, and it's great and it works really well. It's the intangibles that happen at shows, right? The chance meetings, the unplanned discovery of a new product you hadn't thought of, a new way of doing things. It's so important. And I was thinking about it the other day, like, people thinking where to allocate budgets now, and like digital marketing obviously is so important. But I've got to say, like, I can think back to this time last year going to an exhibition, and I can kind of picture spatially where I was in the room, what I saw on the walls, maybe someone I had a conversation with, maybe with the glasses they were wearing, something like that. Can't remember what I was looking at on Instagram. So from a brand
Exactly.
recognition point of view, right, there's something unbeatable about that in-person experience. And I think for us, like as a show, the function of a show like this is always going to be essential, bringing everyone into the room at the same time. And it's not just the same people as well, because the industry evolves the whole time. There are people coming and going now more than ever. People are considering their roles, coming into interiors and architecture, going out. So I think, IDS is it's this like, main anchor point of the year for the design industry in both cities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and really, talk to digital, I won't go too much in that, but really that is the conduit, that is the gateway, if you will, to in-person interaction. But you can't negate that. You have to have that because again, I always say shake hands, kiss babies. You have to meet people in person. Those relationships, those things that wouldn't normally happen, that only can only happen in person. I
And
couldn't let you. Oh no, no, continue. What are
no,
you
I
gonna
was
say?
going to say in 3D as well, because this industry, we're 3D, so
Yeah,
it
exactly.
is really important to look, feel, touch things, and really experience them.
Without question. I couldn't let you go without saying you're at the forefront of everything. Trends, what's happening not only from a build perspective, but also from a design perspective. So there has to be things that you're seeing, whether it be in the shows that you're hearing going through these booths. What are some of the things that we're seeing and that we could expect as far as trends? And also, maybe are there any surprises that you're noticing that you wouldn't think would be as important, but they're seeing it progress forward?
Yeah, it's a funny time for design right now. I think it's, we're in this quasi recession. I don't think it's any secret that's been going on for about a year now. Um, from my travels on the shows earlier this year and seeing what's going on in IDS, there's this interesting commercial. So if I look at the interior products, the furniture, lighting, acoustics, those, kitchen, bath, that kind of thing. There's been a shift because pre-pandemic, the office project was such a golden ticket, and that has
That
really,
changed
oh yeah, and
a little
also
bit.
yeah, the scale of it, but also there's still this nervousness of like, what is the ideal office? Like people don't know yet because it just evolves all the time, and it's basically like what sells, what gets people back into the office, or is there a different way of doing things? And I've heard some amazing things like people. There's a designer in Vancouver called Saint Marie who's working on a project for an office, and he's using a hotel as the blueprint. Like what an interesting idea, right? As
Okay,
somewhere that's designed to host people rather than capture and facilitate them. It's like
that is
a really
interesting.
nice idea. So I think in terms of on the product side, people aren't really sure what to do, and the trend. I don't know if this is a trend, but what I really saw in the international fairs is people are being very cautious, and they're going with safe products. So instead of tooling up and trying new things and experimenting, they're going for tried and tested things, giving them a little tweak, doing some safe upholstery, products that will work in the home or the office. And I've got to say that there's a lot of stuff that was quite boring as a result of that. So, that often in a recession, in a real recession, there's crazy experimentation and people doing different things. Maybe that'll come next. I really hope it will, because I think we need a little bit of that. Um, so yeah, that's really what I've seen in the industry, is that sort of slight nervousness, but we're amazing people in this industry who solve problems with creativity, and I'm sure that's the next step. And yeah, and hotel design is something that's very big at the moment and so interesting. And I'll say it here first. We do have a big project coming up in IDS Toronto, which will be centered on hotel design, and a big creative project, because I think it's one of the most fascinating disciplines in design at the moment. Not only the innovations, and everyone's redoing them at the moment and really thinking about how they work, but also like it's capturing public attention. Like everyone's really interested in hotel design. They're watching White Lotus. They're looking at where they're going to go next on vacation. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting one to look at.
So that's Toronto 2025.
We're going to do a big feature about hotel design and have a set of designers each do a different space in the hotel.
I'm excited to do that because, of course, of some of the conversation we've had is with some hotel designers. And that's that was going to be on the last question. What do I expect from IDS going forward? How are you guys gonna? What are your role? What are you guys gonna be doing in the next 2 years to reinvigorate the design industry as a whole? And obviously, I want to be in Toronto next year.
Yeah, you've got to be there. So I think we're talking about this feature in the future neighborhood. One of the big things we've started doing, which we didn't do before, is producing our own features. So instead of getting
Okay.
different designers come in, give them a loose brief, we are curating and driving this conversation at the center of the show floor, and that will continue and expand. And by the one after this, I want to be doing 3 different things on the show floor. We're also going to be evolving our talks program. We've got this amazing legacy of a keynote program on the show floor, which is I've
Yes.
worked on a lot of shows, and talks were a kind of afterthought. With IDS, it's front and center. We have a big
Oh,
stage, big production.
it's like a draw. I mean, it is like standing room only. Some of these conversations, people are waiting for these conversations.
Absolutely, and we're going to be investing more time in that as well. Working with the speakers to almost get to TED levels with the type of performance that they give, and having very strong themes on each day. So there's a lot more to come in that area. And we always innovate the show floor as well, like really curate which brands take part in the show. The Vancouver show is looking magnificent. We've got a 27-foot bar at the center of the show, which I'm terrified about, but it's going to be amazing. It's a designer called Stark from Squamish in BC.
Okay.
We've obviously got the future neighborhood, and I've actually redesigned the show floor completely for this edition. And the Toronto show with a hotel design and our new keynotes is going to be amazing. So it's been my third one, so it's very important to me as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's going to be an amazing opening party in Vancouver. I'm sure that's going to be crazy.
Oh, well, the
'Cause-
party, it's so funny. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, the party." The party is that's the thing. That's the whole show, right?
yeah,
It's where everyone lets their hair down and has those amazing conversations, and you discover new people. And it's like, I mean, the whole show is important, but that the party, ooh, and
yeah.
I people party differently in Canada to in the UK. I'll tell you this.
You know
Yeah.
what? That is so true. It's funny. I was talking to Matthew McCormick on an
Oh
earlier
yeah,
episode, and I was
lovely
like,
guy.
something about we had the Gray Awards. I'm like, something about you Canadians. I don't know what it is, but you guys party like nobody's business.
They're decked out and they turn up and it's, I mean, I say they, I have my Canadian passport now, so I should say we, but yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
it
yeah.
still feels slightly different.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Will. I'm looking forward to it, not only Vancouver, but of course Toronto. And again, just love the work you guys do. And I can't wait till I go to the next one.
Real pleasure. Nice to talk to you. Talk soon.
All right, bye.